It's 6:30. Good evening. You're welcome to News Tonight. We're live on GH1 television and my name is Keminni, Amanor. Our top stories. Remorseful Kokrobite resident says sorry to recuperating PDS worker who was assaulted in line of duty. Also coming up, swift police intervention frees what could have become a bloodbath as angry farmers of Ihunya clash with some herders. And tonight on Insight, we'll talk about the race to Jubilee as chartered accountant and international development practitioner declares his intention to contest in the presidential race. Also tonight, peace in the eyes of a co-founder of OneUp. Tonight we discuss security with Emmanuel Bombande. And in business, let's talk about the city as government calls for a bipartisan army to rescue the dwindling fortunes of the city. You're welcome to the program. Now, we'll start in Parliament where the House has passed the Right to Information Bill into law. The law, which will be implemented in January 2020, now awaits presidential assent. The RTI law will provide for the operationalization of the constitutional right to information held by the public and some private institutions, subject to exemptions that are necessary and consistent with the protection of public interest in a democratic society.
The right to information is not a new law on the continent. It was first adopted by Sweden in 1766 and Finland in 1951. Over the past 2 decades, many African countries have also adopted the laws, indicating acknowledgement that transparency is an essential condition of democracy. Currently, 24% of the African countries have adopted the law, and these include South Africa, Angola, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Liberia, Guinea, and Ghana. The Right to Information Bill is to enable Ghanaian taxpayers the need to have access to information concerning what government does with their money and what government plans to do on their behalf. The bill is meant to ensure Ghanaians have access to governance or official information from public offices on request and without request. The Right to Information Bill is also meant to put into effect Article 21(1)(f) of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, which states that all persons shall have the right to information subject to such qualifications and laws as are necessary in a democratic society. It has been many years of struggle to get the bill passed, with parliamentary debates and reviews hindering the passage of the bill into law for almost 2 decades now, after it was first drafted in 1999 and reviewed in 2003. But there was a fraction of the public that did not support the passage of the bill. That also sparked concerns among Ghanaians.
It's a right of the good people of Ghana to all the information that is generated by people who are given power in trust for and on behalf of the good people of Ghana, or a body or group of persons. That is why it's not only dealing with public, but also in some respect affects the private sector. And I think that Ghana will now celebrate that this bill has been passed.
The content of the document is estimated to cost some 750 million Ghana cedis for the setting up of the Information Commission and operation in the first 5 years. Though the course was also seen as a challenge, Elvis Darkon, editor of the Finder newspaper, stated that the cost should not be a hindrance to the full implementation of the law.
It's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for bad governance, not the current RTI in itself. I mean, I've said it many times on the floor here. You've been following my argument. I've gone through the history of countries. Yeah, because no, but that is a bonanza for media men. Tony Blair, I mean, I cite the case of Tony Blair. It's gone on the whole world and told the whole world that it is a document which it's a gold mine for journalists.
With about 92 clauses, the RTI bill makes provision for some exemptions and protection, but there was concerns of some of the clauses, especially clause 14.
It's not all information that can be put in the public domain. Some protection must be given to some kind of information. Even in advanced countries, you have classified information. So information bordering on national security, I think, should be protected, and rightfully it is under the law. I think information on matters relating to public health, matters relating to national security, I think those are matters that should not be put in the public domain. Now, as a journalist, if you have those kinds of information, the law says that you can go to court and argue on the basis of national interest. And if the court so agrees with you, the court will allow you to publish the information.
Abraham Amaliba reiterated that though the bill is going to be beneficial to all Ghanaians, people should not abuse the bill.
One way to reduce conflict between the public that is yearning for information and the public officials is for the institutions to be proactive and put the information on the web. If they do that, there will not be need for people asking for information. So transparency is key. People should also abuse the law, and this one I'm talking about the citizens, should not unnecessarily go out there and be seeking information when actually they don't need it. Two, when that information is already available through the media of that institution or the websites. This law is to hold government in check. So we should ensure as citizens that we do not abuse the process.
Minority Leader in Parliament Haruna Idrisu says the bill could be reviewed and amended if the need arose, but noted that the bill will deepen accountability in the governance and government institutions as well as promote transparency.
Now, Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Dr. Muhammadu Bawumia, has said ONEP's partnership with ECOWAS would improve the prospects of peace within the sub-regional bloc. He made the observation during an event to mark ONEP's 20 years of peace building.
For 2 decades, the West African Network for Peace Building has either issued early warning signs or contributed in brokering peace in conflict areas within the West African sub-region. ONEP was founded in 1998 in response to civil wars that plagued West Africa in the 1990s. It has secretariats in all 15 ECOWAS member states with over 550 network member organizations whose expertise span across various thematic areas in the field of peace and security. A senior mediation advisor with the UN Department of Political and Peace Building Affairs, Emmanuel Bombardi, says ONEP has made the sub-region a better place. Tuminata Semati Sesuma, Commissioner for Political Affairs at the AU, the emerging era of terrorism on the African continent poses a major threat. She said it behooves on African leaders to devise lasting solutions to the global enemy. ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, General Francis Behansen, said his outfit recognizes early warning mechanisms by WANEB since it triggers early responses to avert escalating crises. In his keynote address, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia lauded the WANEB-ECOWAS partnership.
West Africa's democracies and security environment, ladies and gentlemen, is increasingly unstable. It is obvious that the states alone cannot address the myriad of security challenges, hence the need for continued partnership with credible civil society organizations.
16 fellows were inducted, including the former commissioner on the Ayawaso West Wogan Commission, Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu.
So that was one of 2 days ago when they celebrated their 20 years of existence. Now, let's have a conversation with, co-founder of WANEB, who is now a senior mediation advisor with the United Nations. He's also former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. I'm talking about Emmanuel Habuka Bombande.
Thank you so much. You spell my name and pronounce it beautifully.
Rightly. I'm glad I could do that. I was wondering if I was on the right path.
Absolutely, you were.
But thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been a while we've heard from you.
Yes, it's been a while. I'm mostly out of town because the preoccupation is elsewhere.
Right.
So we are trying to work for the stability of the African continent, but also elsewhere. And so in my role, I'm mainly outside.
I remember you were one of the few appointees who got the real tongue lashing when you got the position of Deputy Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration Minister.
Yes.
How did you handle that?
Well, first of all, I spent 3 hours before the Parliament Appointment Committee. It was rigorous, but those who were tongue lashing did not know what they were saying. I'm forever grateful to President John Dramani Mahama for bringing me to serve in his government. The experience is incredible. It's about the value and quality of the time you served and not the length. And as I speak with you, my good sister, it has enhanced my capacity to do more in the area of building peace across the world. And if you wanted a quick anecdote in less than 1 minute, in Bangui, I was engaging with government delegations on how we could forge the way forward for dialogue between the 14 armed groups in Central African Republic and the government of Central African Republic. One of the ministers got up and started speaking about how when they who are ministers make decisions, people like us who are experts do not recognize and respect those decisions. And somebody who is called Ambassador Hamuli Baraza from Congo DRC stood up and told him, in case you don't know, this man was a deputy minister in Ghana. That has weight. Keep in mind, I was one deputy minister. I was not one of two. And everybody in the room started giving me a new form of respect that allowed me to do more of what I could have done. And that's just a tip of the iceberg of what President Mahama did in enhancing my capacity, not to mention serving him with the principles and the values that are required.
I want to talk about that service you gave that country, because what you've just told us is how the appointments made you better, for lack of a better adjective. But let's talk about looking back. Do you think you were able to serve as you envisaged you would in that position? Because let's not forget, you moved from a CSO background into mainstream politics. So what was the retrospection like?
So first of all, the CSO background, and I had said briefly in the UN Office for West Africa and the Sahel before President Mahama brought me in. It brought me to understand that part of our politics is its pettiness and lack of professionalism. The CSO background brought me in with a high level of professionalism. So I found myself in situations where people will say, we've been in politics for 20 years. You just came in. And I'm like, for heaven's sake, your 20 years in politics makes me kind of wonder because there is nothing in it that is admirable. Your politics is about constantly trying to undermine the other, denigrate the other, and be disrespectful. And you call that politics. So by the time I was leaving, even our friends on the other side would tell me, you were wonderful. In the foreign ministry, our foreign service officials really appreciated, because they saw that I brought in a different style in assisting the foreign minister, Honorable Hanatete. And so I have never regretted, and it has enriched me incredibly. And that is what, for me, our human contribution should be.
Let's talk about now. You occupy the high position of Senior Mediation Advisor at the United Nations. But I want us to look at the regional bloc, West Africa. What would be your assessment of security on this bloc, you know, since the emergence of these insurgencies we've seen in many parts of the bloc?
Yes, we are confronted with new threats, with new challenges. At the time that we started working with WANEP, the confrontation was about the stability of the state and how we can deepen and expand the spaces of democracy and get out of the cycle of violence that was often the confrontation in terms of choosing our leaders and in terms of a governance system that is uninterrupted. We have moved from there, in which by and large across West Africa we are progressing in how we manage transitions. But then all of a sudden we are now confronted with violent extremism, and violent extremism is happening in ways that are driven by extreme ideologies that want to marginalize. Either you want to marginalize, for example, another gender, and mostly it is women who are suffering out of it, based on false ideologies such as religion, such as ethnicity. And the two recent examples are one in Yurgi in Burkina Faso, another one in Mali, where an entire village was massacred simply because they are Fulani, they are pale. So this confrontation then is also introducing terrorism, in which people are prepared to destroy, even if it means they destroy themselves. And that type of conflict is happening internally, it is happening at communal level, and we must find the new innovative approaches to deal with them.
We keep saying that, but it would appear that our leadership, be it at the West African level, the African level, have not got a lid on the situation. You take Nigeria, you take Burkina Faso. You know, we're just there, we get hit, and then oops, we got hit, and then we talk about it, and then it goes away. So, again, what would you say about leadership in handling security, either on the continent or even within the bloc?
You raise a very important point. It's because we are still trying to apply old methodologies to solve problems that are completely different from how we understand them and how we should be able to deal with them. And so you have a situation in which the state was always at the center of making the type of decisions that should bring about peace in a community. Even in our own context in Chereponi, what you hear is that a fact-finding commission was formed. It came up with recommendations. The recommendations will be implemented. But it did not talk about how the process should rather be in the hands of the people. Of Chereponi from both or all sides. And that for me is the issue here. The new approach must recognize that the state can only support and facilitate, but the state is not the provider of the solution. The solution must come from bottom up. We must generate what we call bottom up approaches. And you can look in our own context. In Dagon, it was when the people of Dagon finally at their level engaged with the Committee of Eminent Kings that we started to see a way forward, and not what the state thought could happen. If you look in Boku, it's the same. And as we speak in Boku, they still have an inter-ethnic peace committee. They meet regularly and they try to respond to daily challenges. That is the way to go. But when we see the top insisting that we will bring to you how to coexist peacefully, it's a wrong approach. And whilst we say that, that does not mean the role of the security agencies does not continue. But what they do is that they coordinate and secure a peaceful, a secure environment for the people to talk about how they can coexist. and this is the way we should go. And to end on this question that you have asked, it is for this reason that going back, and one of the things I'm proud about is that both the NPP and the NDC, at my time in civil society, with the UN country team in Ghana, we worked hard for a new architecture that will be responsive on the basis of what I have described. And that is what resulted into the National Peace Council. But Ghanaians are sometimes worried that they are not seeing the National Peace Council proactive.
Right.
The National Peace Council does not need to ask anybody to convene dialogue. But sometimes the National Peace Council is like, what do we do? Would you be willing, or would you invite? You shouldn't invite the National Peace Council to intervene in any dialogue situation. They must be proactive, because the Act 818 gives them the mandate to coordinate, create the environment, and promote peacefulness and our peaceful coexistence.
Very well. Now, I see you use some Ghana examples, and I'd love for us to talk about Ghana, but only in a bit. Now, let's go back to the original bloc and, you know, the continental security situation. I know ONEP has had engagements while you were there, yes, at both levels, yes, in terms of security. What really is the solution to why we know the approach we should use, but we can't implement it either at the bloc level or even at individual state level? What's the problem with our leadership?
It is, first of all, the capacity to understand the partnerships that His Excellency the Vice President talked about when he spoke at the 20th anniversary of ONEP, that civil society is a partner. And not just a partner, because civil society can do certain things that the state cannot do. Leadership needs to understand that. I think in Ghana, we are probably the most progressive in that regard. But if you look at the West Africa sub-region, many countries still have leaders who do not understand this value. And so they see civil society sometimes to be a hindrance. And it's only when it is too late they might make an uncommitted statement that civil society should play a role. And even when they talk about the role of civil society, it is as if we would dictate to them what they should do. We need to change that. We need a paradigm shift that recognizes this partnership, and that now makes it possible for the partnership to be engaging. Quick example in the West Africa region is what we talked about earlier. How do you deal with violent extremism? The people come into the village, they mix up with the people, they stay with them, they eat with them, they go to their markets, and in the period of 10 days to 2 weeks, they study the soft targets and the weaknesses of the security that is provided there. Then they withdraw. The next time you hear, they have attacked and wiped out that village. Now, even with your best of intelligence, you are not able to apprehend the danger that is unfolding. But when the community is well prepared and alert to their responsibilities as partners in their own well-being and security, when strangers come into that village, they will approach them and they will begin to have the type of conversation. Who are you? Where have you come from? Did you come with good intentions? Have you come to us with peace? These days, we want to know, because some people are not sure when people visit them,
right,
and interact them with the security agencies to deal with the issue.
Right.
But when you disregard the people, then you see that at the end of the day, your security cannot coordinate violent extremism and terrorism.
In the Ghana case, we've realized that our neighbors have been hit by one violence or the other at very high scales than we have seen in our very recent history. But when you take that circumstance and you add a very recent history here in the country, while the skills may not be the same, it gives room for worry. Would you say we'll be sitting on a time bomb?
Absolutely. We'll be sitting on a time bomb for quite some time to come. But we should also recognize that there is finally a reawakening. What is called the Sinkasi B2 axis in the north of Togo directly is on the borders of our northeastern corridor. As a matter of fact, my hometown of the Boku area, though further from Boku is Widana, where you then have the border with Togo. And that was where there was a recent attack and 5 people killed. So it could not have come much closer.
Right.
I remember I was in Ouagadougou at the time, and very happy that President Nana Akufo-Addo convened the meeting that brought Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Burkina Faso, and Mali.
Right.
That cooperation that we must build is the way to go. And that's the professionalism I'm talking about. You recognize what must be done, and professionally, we support one another across our political divide, because peace and security is never something that you subject to politics. And that has been the mistake for long. And one of your earlier questions talked about that. When you mortgage your peace and security for somebody else, you are bound to be in a terrible situation.
Right.
And so I would say that we are sitting on a time bomb. The question is, are we responding enough? I'm beginning to see that we are doing that.
And would one of those effective response be what the president has outlined for the parties to do, meet and disband, figure out ways to disband their militias and vigilante groups, depending on how you look at them?
I want to be very candid with you. The chief reconciler of any state is the head of state and the president. We should never even have arrived at the state in which we find ourselves with the threat and the menace of political vigilantism,
right,
otherwise now known as political militias. And that for the past 2 years, there was this ravaging impunity, disrespect for the rule of law, and we played with it with kid gloves. So these are my quick observations. The first thing is, these vigilante groups have no legitimacy anywhere. The only place they have some legitimacy is in the political party that supports them. So your first point of departure is that the parties that own these vigilantes must disassociate, disown, disavow, and say that you don't belong. I'm happy that Mr. Samuel Ofosu Ampofu has done that on behalf of the NDC. I want Freddie Blay to do that on behalf of the NPP.
But it turns out to be all talk. I mean, we say that, in fact, even for the NDC, the narrative has been that we don't own any political, vigilante groups. What we have are individual members of our party who have some voice.
No, NDC has gone beyond that. What NDC is saying is, in fact, when Joseph Yamin even made a statement supporting the Hawks, NDC issued a statement and told him, you cannot do that if you are a member of the party. I am not necessarily praising NDC. What I'm saying is, that is the environment that now allows you to ban vigilantism. You don't need to get vigilantism banned if the commitment does not begin with you disassociating yourself with it. That's the point I want to make. And that is why the environment now makes meaning to the dialogue. And the dialogue must be properly done. So I'm happy that, one, they've accepted that it should be inclusive, and the Peace Council will play that role.
Right.
But Ghanaians must see the commitment to the disbandment.
Yes.
But then there are also what would be the outcomes of any dialogue if you want to sustain it. So that if in any security agency, vigilante groups found themselves absorbed, we must sanitize, clean those security agencies. So it's not just about meeting to disband, but it's about taking the steps that will make it possible for Ghanaians to have confidence, trust in their security services. Because that is equally important.
Right.
If you say today the vigilantes are banned, but some of them who found themselves in security apparatus can continue to operate, then what you are basically saying is, who are these security agencies and how can Ghanaians trust them? So it's a whole social engagement. It's a whole political engagement. But be it as it may, the fact that the president is willing to commit and support to that must be commended. Because at the end of the day, when the history books are rewritten, his legacy will be, when you were president, what happened with political violence? So it's in his interest that for posterity, he must play a leading role for the disbandment of vigilante groups. But then that must happen with showing commitment at the level of his party and at the level of the National Democratic Congress, that because we disassociate completely, when we now begin to dialogue, there is a meaningful dialogue that now allows us to see our way forward with concrete steps that must be monitored, that must be implemented, and that must make Ghanaians to be satisfied. That at the end of the day, this menace has been dealt with.
Very well. I'm grateful for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It's been great talking to you.
Thank
Emmanuel
you
Bombande is UN Senior Mediation Advisor. He's also former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. You may very well know him for co-founding ONEP. Now, away from that, let's talk about, well, let's stay with security. About 40 armed police personnel on Thursday stormed Huhunya, a farming community in the Yellow Krobot municipality of the Eastern region, to avert bloody clashes between angry farmers and herders in the area. Our Eastern region correspondent Kojo Nsa has the rest of the story.
The armed police team deployed with reinforcements from the New Drabing South Municipal Police Command and the Regional Police Headquarters stormed the community to maintain law and order as machete and club-wielding farmers invaded the bush to fight the herdsmen, ostensibly to drive them away from the area. According to the angry residents, the cattle numbering over 300 were brought to the community without their permission. They alleged that the presence of the cattle for the past 3 weeks have led to the destruction of their crops, pollution of water bodies and insecurity as they are threatened whenever they complain. Hence the action to evict the herders and their cattle from the area. The eviction action, which started on Tuesday, had the farmers invading the bush chasing the herders and their cattle. The situation nearly turned bloody on Thursday when the angry farmers accused the herders of reluctance to leave the area, therefore decided to use brute force to drive them away. The timely intervention by the police team, led by the Municipal Chief Commander, Chief Superintendent Justice Anthony Eduhine Benier, and his station officer, Chief Inspector Ebenezer Sechi, to restore calm after hours of operation in the bush. Some of the angry farmers spoke to GH1 News.
那白呀，也叫我放你娘了，我把猪你娘go。也的年纪，我们也是生的娘，也讲难听，那样分的啥？也你噻，我不要和你讲，阿啥生的也的呀，阿啥生的也能我们的阿啥生的家哎，一天也不是，我们放难听的搞，只是也难听的没别，也不是难听的也不是克么哈别，难听的不是克么哈别嘛，你要往那点也不要么。这是我们是也你嘛，那na chweni mu amu godu fuom nu na obo be kum asase nu maye na ye di be didi wo ho na odi pa odi asase nu ma mu nu odi pa do oni asase e wa ha oni asase bia wa ha oye krofo.
Meanwhile, the displaced herders were assisted by the police to evacuate the area to an unknown destination with their cattle.
You're watching News Tonight. There's more ahead. Stay with us for insight. Now, tonight we'll focus on the race to Jubilee. A chartered accountant and international development practitioner, Marie Kofi Gan, has announced his decision to contest the presidential race in the 2020 elections as an independent presidential candidate. Take a look.
God has indeed blessed our homeland, Ghana. It is up to us to make her great and strong. And it is for this very reason that I come before you today and with the utmost humility announce my intention to run for the high office of the President of the Republic of Ghana in 2020 December, and as an independent candidate. Not because I am perfect, not because I have the money to buy your votes, not because I have the political machinery to deploy propaganda. I do it because it needs to get done. I do it because this country is all I have. I gave up a lot to make this decision, so that posterity does not have to endure the same losses we had to. Some 20 years from now, we will all have the chance to say, when we realized things weren't working well, we got up and we made a difference.
Now, he says his core vision is to build economic, social, technological, and political pillars that drive Ghana into first world status within 25 years of his administration. Such an ambitious plan, isn't it? Well, let's engage Marie Kofi Gan. He's here with me in the studio. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Really bold step. Really bold. And I'm sure you've heard the word bold a lot of times today. What was it like listening to yourself say the things that you said?
I don't know, you know. I think when I was saying it being me. So it's not, I don't feel differently. I feel the same passion I felt when I said all that. So yeah, that's me.
Right. So when I was told about the interview today, I had two questions in mind. And I'm tempted to ask both at the same time. Okay. But I'll take one after the other.
Sure.
On the minds of many who have not encountered you before, the first question is, who is this person? Who are you?
I'm Ghanaian. I think that's the most credible side to start from. I'm Ghanaian. I've always been Ghanaian, a passionate Ghanaian for that matter. If there is anything different from me, is the fact that I have stayed the course to see how Ghana will evolve. I don't believe it is evolving in the manner it's evolving. And I don't believe in just letting things go. I believe in getting there and getting something done. So largely, I'm not any different from you or anybody else in the studio. I'm just a normal Ghanaian like everybody else.
Right. So what's fueling the conviction that this is the thing to do?
I met my grandfather. He lived during Nkrumah's time. He had stories to tell back then. They were wonderful stories. I mean, you could almost see Ghana getting somewhere in those stories. And then my father came along. He's got truncated. He left out for Nigeria, felt things were getting better, so we came back. And the idea was that we could hope that things got better and move on from there. I have kids now. I don't think things are moving in the direction I would love them to move. And I hate for the fact that I would also just watch it by and let it roll, you know, play like a movie, and then say a story to my kids sometime later in the future that Ghana used to be a setting where it's not like that anymore. I can't sit by and watch that happen. So it's not about being, you know, motivated in a way different from being an ordinary citizen and seeing that things aren't going right and wanting to do something about it. I think the thing for me is wanting to do something about it. I'm not doing this because I want to be somebody. I'm doing this because it's a job to get done. And that's, in the professional areas I've worked in, that's the way I've been raised. If there's a job to get done, you get in and get it done.
How long would you say it took you to come to the decision?
I've always had, I think I've always had a bit of drive around politics in me. It's just not materialized outside. But then I think what has driven me is the fact that you hope and hope and hope, and then up to a point you figure, you know what, this is not about hope really anymore. It's about work that needs to get done. And so that's largely the motivation. It's largely because I see prosperity. Look, I work with the youth. I talk to youth every day. And it hurts me. It hurts me that, one, they are not plugged into the rest of the world. Two, they do have the energy and want to create opportunities, but they can't seem to, you know, create those opportunities. And you can't see that and pretend it's not happening. It is happening. And for me, it's largely about getting there and solving a problem. It's not. I'm not here to make a name, as people are saying. I'm not here to to do anything other than that.
We'll come back and talk about some of those things you have heard since you made the announcement video and released that statement. But let's look at your statement that you released, and a few statements also we've seen from you about why Kofi Gan is the man. Now, it says that I'm not part of the current corrupt political status quo. I have the political will to change it. And I'll ask you something about that. But let's move on to the next slide. I bring professional expertise in development, value for money, meritocracy, accountability. I know how to build, and you put systems that work in caps. The next slide also says, well-traveled, technology, and globally immersed. I understand how the world works and how to position Ghana in it. And then the very last slide will be your focus areas, and would look into your focus areas in about an hour's time. And that should tell you that Kofi Gan will be back on State of Affairs with myself. But let's look at the very first slide, the political will. You are not aligned to the status quo.
No.
Never, ever?
Never.
Not at any point in your life?
I have received offers. I haven't taken the offers.
Right. Why didn't you take the offers back then?
Back then, there's two reasons.
Because it was an opportunity to serve.
It was. Well, it depends. There's serving, and then, you've got to know where you're serving.
Right.
If I felt I wasn't serving in an environment that would get the best out of me, I would not serve, because all through my working career, it's been about efficiency. If I feel there's not going to be a way where I can exercise and deliver efficiency, then I'd rather not. It's largely that for me. I did have those opportunities. I just didn't feel back then the timing was right. Now I think it's not that the timing is right, it's necessary. I think that's what it's the driver for me now. It's not a choice for me anymore. It's not something I can say, you know what, I'll wait for another couple of years. I think I'm just at the right timing for this.
And you talk about political will. You have the political will. How easy would it be for you as an independent president with a multicolored legislature? How do you think that's going to work out for you?
See, I'll get asked that question a lot. And this is what I say to people. There's two ways you can look at that. On the one hand, the fact that our Constitution even allows it tells you the Constitution believes that it is something that can work, or it's workable, or it's good for our country. The other way you can look at it is this. So I like not to look at it from a negative perspective. The way I like to look at it from this is this. Our parliament is supposed to work as a check and balance on the executive. Currently what we have is the legislature is largely an extension of the executive. You can't have that independence with the kind of party state we have currently. What I offer is my being an independent candidate automatically brings about some level of independence of parliament or of the legislature from an executive. And we can have very value-based conversations around what is good for this country if we don't have that separation. And so there are positives to this. It's not all negative. That's the way I choose to see. I choose to see the positive sides of it.
Well, my producer has just alerted me to keep the rest of the conversation for State of Affairs, which is on at 8:30. You want to join us in about an hour or so, just a little over an hour for that conversation. My guest is Marik Kofi Gan. He is an independent presidential hopeful. We'll see him again in a bit. Thank you very much, Marik.
Thank you.
You're watching News Tonight. There's more to come. Stay with us.
with the 4G speed. Get the real 4G experience on Vodafone's Gigabit network.
The future is exciting. Ready?
I love to see children grow healthy and strong. That's why I fully support exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life. Breast milk alone has all the food and water that a baby needs to grow healthy and strong. It's pure and it's safe. I'm Rebecca Kufuado. I believe and support the Good Life campaign from the Ghana Health Service, and so should you.
Good Life. Live it well. It's an everyday thing.
Come and visit the Clifton Homes team at the Mikasa Home and Property Fair on the 6th and 7th of April at the Silver Star Tower to explore a range of exceptional properties. Impeccably finished homes with hotel-class amenities in Accra's finest locations, and all at sensible market-leading prices. We look forward to telling you more.
I love to see children grow healthy and strong. That's why I fully support exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life. Breast milk alone has all the food and water that a baby needs to grow healthy and strong. It's pure and it's safe. I'm Rebecca Kufuado. I believe and support the Good Life campaign from the Ghana Health Service, and so should you.
Good Life. Live it well. It's an everyday thing.
In this part of the world, we are up long before the sun. Playing our part to make our world, our connections, and relationships a lot more brighter. They say agrobeswa, ne frianopa. Start your day bright with MTN Kokroko. For only 1 Ghana cedi, you can enjoy 400 megabytes of data and 30 minutes of free MTN to MTN calls every day from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. everywhere you go. Dial *138# to buy the MTN Kokroko bundle now.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Whether you're young or old, a girl or a boy, a woman or a man, we all can help prevent malaria by sleeping under insecticide-treated net every night and throughout the night. Let's protect ourselves and our families from malaria. I'm Rebecca Kufuado. I believe and support the Good Life campaign from the Ghana Health Service, and so should you.
Good Life. Live it well. It's an everyday thing.
Welcome back. Time now for business here on News Tonight.
Business Brief is brought to you by
Everywhere you go, MTN.
We'll talk about the dwindling fortunes of the city. The Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, will in the coming days outdoor a bipartisan committee to investigate the root cause of the annual depreciation of the cedi against major trading currencies. This was revealed by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, when he appeared before Parliament earlier today.
Section 12 of the 2019 Budget Statement and Economic Policy, I stated that we were on course to completing the extended credit facility with the International Monetary Fund. Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to announce that it is now a mission accomplished. Mr. Speaker, the President has directed that I investigate the structural causes for the depreciation of the cedi and to propose measures to address the situation. The governor and I will put a bipartisan committee together to proceed immediately.
Let's take a listen to some reactions from members of parliament after the finance minister's statement on the economy and the solution to the cedi's depreciation.
Mr. Speaker, in the IMF's own statement, and here I want to indicate that what IMF did was not for Ghana to exit, but the IMF gave us a condition to waive us meeting the conditions that we're supposed to meet in order to exit. In other words, Ghana entered a classroom to write an exam. We were supposed to write the exams in 3 years. In 3 years' time, we said we're not ready. We were given another 1 year to come and write the exams. We still said we're not ready. Then we wrote to the IMF to say that we want you to give us a waiver for non-observance of performance criteria. And IMF says, go and say no more. Mr. Speaker, you come to celebrate this. Mr. Speaker, when you beg somebody to forgive you not to meet conditions, and the IMF letter is very clear, it's a response to a waiver for non-observance of performance criteria.
Who does not know the root cause of the cedi depreciation? We do know. It's because the structure of the economy is such that the cedi clearly will continue depreciating. It's because whatever temporary stability that happens to the cedi is cosmetic at best, because it just comes from injection that are pumped into the central, by the central bank into the system. So I don't understand why we need even a bipartisan. Even I'm very sure that people in Abosioka and in Mokola, they clearly know exactly what is happening. So it's going to be a complete waste of time and complete waste of taxpayers' money, because President Akufo-Addo knows what the cost is. The Minister for Finance knows what the cost is. It shouldn't waste our time on this one.
Well, government is working at raising $200 million for the implementation of the multi-sectoral mining integrated project. Now, this project is to provide sustainable livelihood and better management of the small-scale mining sector.
The Deputy Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Benito Usubio, made this known at the Africa Conference on Artisanal and Small-Scale Mining and Quarrying. The project will be based on statutory enforcement, social interventions and technological adaptations in the mining industry. It is to regulate and assist artisanal and small-scale miners and to improve the efficiency of the operations.
MMIP is a comprehensive project that is going to have a tenure of about 5 years. The roadmap from the interministerial is to help address the way forward so that the artisanal small-scale miners can go and start work. Yes, but there is the need for us to tackle the whole problem of illegal mining as a project, and that will be done as a project for 5 years.
Deputy Minister of Lands and Natural Resources says the World Bank and the Australian government have committed to supporting Ghana raise the funds.
There are two aspects. One is the environment, and the government has done a lot on that already. They've stopped the dredging on the rivers, maybe not completely, but I think it's been managed a lot better. And then also the regularising of the small-scale mining sector, so that the people involved in it are regulated and monitored correctly, and given the correct amount of training so that they can conduct their mining operations in a safe way, so that people are no longer injured and killed in the sector.
The MMIP, according to the minister, has 5 key broad components. This includes the revision and enforcement of the legal and regulatory regime of artisanal small-scale mining, reclaiming of degraded lands, dredging of silted estuaries, waterways and free land for agribusiness. It will also include the implementation of social interventions to facilitate sustainable livelihood creation in mining communities, adopt technology to ensure efficient mining, processing and environmental monitoring activities. Finally, multi-sectoral mining integrated project will build capacity of small-scale miners, regulate institutions and effective project management.
That'll be all for business.
Business Brief is brought to you by
Everywhere you go, MTN.
So far, it is estimated that about 97% of infants have received routine immunization services in Ghana. The remaining 3% are said to be in hard-to-reach areas. The Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Nsia Sare, is of the view that the drone technology to be launched in April will help fill the gap. He said the service will also pilot a malaria vaccine in 4 selected regions from April 2019.
A vaccine is a biological preparation that improves immunity to a particular disease and are essential in ensuring healthy lives for people all over the world. Sustainable Development Goal 3 seeks to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages, and targets 3B calls for access to safe, effective, quality and affordable medicines and vaccines for all by the year 2030. Immunization services in Ghana has helped to eliminate neonatal tetanus in 2011, whilst there has not been any case of poliomyelitis since 2008. While stakeholders have commended these successes struck, the National Expanded Program on Immunization estimates that 7% of infants are still not reached with immunization services.
We want to make sure that they get the logistics, they get the people who are supposed to go there and train and then give the vaccination. So the drone system is going to fill in that gap. It's a very important gap which has to be filled. We want to be 100% or near 100%. And the only way we can do that is send the logistics, send the vaccines to the people, to areas where it's very difficult.
To improve immunization coverage and equity, a strong supply chain system is critical, which requires supply chain managers and personnel who are highly skilled at all levels of the health system to overcome existing and emerging challenges. As a result, the Ghana Health Service has initiated the implementation of Strategic Training Executive Program STEP with Global Alliance for Vaccine and Immunization.
We believe that bringing in the private sector, sharing the experience on how they manage projects, how they manage the human resources with the public health staff will help them understand the public health service challenge, and also will be a bridge for discussion between the private sector and the public sector.
National Program Manager for the Expanded Program on Immunization, Dr. George Bonsu, says to ensure Ghana reaches its full immunization target, container clinics will be deployed in market centers.
Working of the districts to ensure that we establish vaccine services, especially in the market places, so people are close to clients. In some places, we even do weekend immunization services, where the staff for 2 Sundays in a week, they go to the market areas where at that time the mothers are now resting with their children. They are able to get services.
The STEP initiative has been rolled out in several African countries, including Rwanda, Benin, Uganda and Nigeria.
A delegation from Kokrobite has compensated the power distribution service worker from the Botiano district who was assaulted. Gershon Kwabna Isiedu, the victim, was attacked with a cutlass while trying to restore power in the area with his team. There's more in this report.
Because now a boy who mother say Kwambia so the Bemom Kanya side Adiachi. Send me boss instructing me say yen true. In the process we say sa de no sikaire abim. Abaya press card you man yentimi amfa sika na ntwa no no modis otawi sika de twai. Ti unexpectedly na sa de ne etuye.
These were the words of Gershon Kwabna Isiedu, a staff of the Power Distribution Service with the maintenance team, as he recalled the events of that unfortunate day. On March 16, a resident of Kokrobite, now on the run, attacked a team of PDS field workers who were pruning tree branches off an overhead electric cable with a cutlass, inflicting serious facial and body wounds on Mr. Isiedu, for which he had to undergo surgery, and according to him, he continues to live in fear with each passing day.
Because if you crap or not do crap, me down me feel say Baba attack me because Sadia no been to me that and I counsel me for many who da. Cause since I didn't happy and I do be a meet me that. Cause me TV got prepared my sorry. Cause me say we flower bed attacking me.
A delegation led by Daniel Ni Ade-Tego, head of the Ni Ade family of Kokrobite, met with staff of the Power Distribution Service in the Botiano district to render an apology on behalf of the residents of Kokrobite to the entire staff of PDS and especially the victim, Mr. Asiedu, and compensated him with an amount of 3,000 Ghana cedis.
This is just a token for your casualty you suffered, and we believe that in due time we'll also come back again to, cement our relationship with you, and we want to render our sincere apology for whatever you went through.
Speaking to the victim, albeit he accepts the apology, what he suffered that day and the harm he has been caused will never go down as one that he can ever forget.
But I want to be Jimmy Kwa. Second, we are Kasana. The Omega say funny edifo. Tiba masum. Nam say me penny fontin. Me to be there. And Kase Timasum.
In an engagement with Daniel Ni Ade-Tego, he condemned the act and stated emphatically that the culprit would be hunted down and the right punishment meted out to him.
Why should this generate into stabbing and beating? It means whoever did it has lost his reasoning power. So wherever the culprit is, we are going to collaborate with the police and make sure he's arrested.
PDS in the Botiano district has also stated that this incident, however, would not deter them from executing their duties as and when necessary.
International brief is next. There's been a huge explosion in the Somali capital of Mogadishu, killing 15 people and injuring 17 others. There's also been a significant increase in large-scale attacks and assassinations in Mogadishu in recent weeks. It's unclear who carried out the attacks, but the significant rise in bombings have been blamed on the Islamist group Al-Shabaab. There has also been lapses in security as Somali troops complain of unpaid salaries. Now, just before we go, I'd like to let you know that President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has left Accra for another state visit to Cuba and the United States. The President is expected to hold bilateral talks while in Havana with his counterpart. He will then leave for the U.S. for a third visit. Well, he'll be back before you know it. He'll be back in a week's time, but that'll be out for us tonight. I'd love for you to join us again at 8:30 for State of Affairs as we engage Ghana's independent presidential hopeful, Marie Kofi Gan. Stay with us.
GH1 TV, your best experience.